It's 6:31 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting of the Old Saybrook Police Commission to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get to any of the agenda items, I'd like to entertain a motion, if one can be advanced, to switch the places of items 6 and 7 on the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right. Comments from the public. We have members of the public present. Would either of you like to make a comment before we start?
Not yet.
Okay. And do we have anybody online or don't we know?
Yes, I've got it here. There are 5 people online.
If anyone would raise their hand if they'd like to comment?
No hands raised.
All right, thank you. Discussion and action on the meeting minutes. I have one correction to make. It's on page 3 in the second paragraph, the third line. Instead of reading, he stated that the commission designated the job, I think it should read that the commission delegated the job.
Either way, I got the job.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes and then we do that.
Okay.
So with revisions?
Well, we first have to make the motion, then to
Oh,
do the
Yeah, and then
discussion.
make
So I make a
the
motion that we accept the
Yep.
minutes
Okay.
and then,
I make the motion. I move that we accept the minutes as proposed
I'll second.
with the modification
and
that
then with the
the
modification
chairman
that I
suggested.
suggested, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Correspondence, I have none to report that hasn't already been shared. Anyone have any? Seeing none. Item 5, executive reports. Chief,
Good evening.
good evening.
So as you see in your fiscal year 25 operating budget report, if you go to the expenses and supplies section, you can see some work that our executive assistant did here. So the bottom line is there is no report that the accounting department can produce. That is what all of us would like to see, right? Which would actually detail what is truly left, not encumbered, what has been spent, and what hasn't, right? So Jen went through and made a 4th column, and she entitled it Balance Without Purchase Order. So she's doing this via Excel. So she's downloading what she can get from the town accounting department software. And then she just wrote formulas in all those cells to get the difference. So it may be from time to time off $1 as Excel rounds up or rounds down. But I do think that it will give you what you're looking for.
Yeah, it did give me what I was looking for here. My only question is how much of a time consuming matter is this?
Yeah.
So it's a once a month task.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
But
after the
it
formulas are
does-
plugged in.
it does
should be
have,
simple.
Yeah.
it's like an automatic kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's not like you're sitting at a calculator calculating.
No, it's Excel formulas.
But she's got to download
Right.
input, you know,
Okay.
little time.
But
not-
there could
not
be
a
a
lot of
rounding
time.
difference, like you said.
So that's the only thing. So if you go across and you're doing some math and you're off $1,
Understood.
it could just be the Excel formula because this is not part. So we really set off about a year and a half ago with this commission to make sure that we weren't doing the reports, that we were giving it to you right from the system, completely transparently. We can't do that anymore to give you the information that you're seeking. So I need to be transparent with you that we're manipulating the town report by adding that extra column.
And I wrote on my copy, thanks.
Okay, so I guess that's good then. Any other questions on our operating budget? I have no concerns anywhere at all at this point in the year, obviously.
Thank
We are very early in the year yet.
Yes. Any questions on the off budget accounts that have been provided to you?
I have none.
I have one on emergency dispatch. Very last line where it says deposit. There's nothing under, there's no explanation of any sort on it. Usually it says state deposit, and that's what I'm assuming this was.
That's probably exactly what it is, but let me go to it.
$7,127.
That sounds exactly like a quarterly payment from the state. Yes, that's exactly what that is.
And then the town hall transfer on police admin.
So that happens at the end of each fiscal year.
Yeah, I know, I think we've seen it before.
Yep.
Yeah.
At the end of each fiscal year, yeah, so.
Okay, but just refresh my memory.
Sure, so it's monies that we've taken in for pistol permits or any other type of administrative work that needs to be reinserted back into the operating budget.
Okay,
So all expenses for that are charged to the off budget account during the year. And at the fiscal year prior to the final audit, it's transferred back into the operating budget by the finance director.
okay, thank you.
Okay, personnel matters?
We will have two candidates going off to the police academy. October 3rd or October 4th is their first day, so we're very excited about that. That obviously does clear up another additional spot in our ranks of public safety dispatchers. So we're actually looking for 3 full-time public safety dispatchers. We have 2 per diem dispatchers that are just about done with their training, and both have indicated that they're interested in a full-time slot. So we're going to allow an internal process. Additionally, this Thursday, I think we have 15 to 18 candidates that are not internal coming in to test for the position. So I'm very confident in a couple of weeks we'll have those folks selected. And depending on what they come with us for training, maybe an instant plug and play, or they'll start their 3 months worth of training.
Are we fully staffed now?
In the police ranks?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Did we participate in the statewide recruitment fair last week?
If you want to go to professional development update,
Is that? okay?
there I am. So there was 2 recruiting efforts in the state last week. One was at the police academy and one was at the University of New Haven. And we participated in both of them. So we had some nice signage made up that made things attractive. We had a picture of Sky even that said, "Come work with me." So we did, everything we could to draw some folks in, and the different personnel that did attend that. I thank them for doing that. They reported, they interacted with some people who had an interest. I don't think it was as widely attended as we would have hoped, but it was good to be out there and participating in these events. And so now we have the stuff to do that. And so if another opportunity presents itself, we'll be able to do that with these.
How many municipalities did participate?
I don't know. It wasn't just local departments either. There were state and federal law enforcement agencies at both career fairs.
Hartford Current had an article, so.
Yeah.
And it sounded as if it was, pretty successful.
We were happy to be there.
When we attend these recruiting events, do people sign an email? Like, how do you follow up with them?
Yeah, it depends on how engaged they want to be, right? So some folks just stop and really don't want to commit with a name or an email.
Okay.
And some choose to use some information and we get back in touch with them. But we certainly push our application procedure, which is policeapp.com.
Right.
And we ask folks to even do that right on the spot on their cellular phones while they're standing with us if they want to.
Okay, good to know.
Okay.
The activity report you have in your packets, so I will answer any questions that you may have on that. But I will say, I say this every year and everyone tilts their head and looks at me like I'm strange. But once again, we have had a heavier caseload or more significant calls post Labor Day. For some reason, this has happened year over year over year. So everyone always thinks Old Saybrook must be busy June, July, and August and dead the rest of the year. That is never what our data has shown over the last 15 years. You folks see that during the budget process. But once again, post Labor Day, we've had more significant time-consuming calls for service. Why that is, I do not know.
We did have a lot more traffic stops during the summer.
I do have a question. On item number 106, it's assault/sexual assault. Is there any way that you can cue sexual assault as its own identity?
No, that's the way remember the dispatchers came in and give you that
Right.
presentation? So that's how the protocol reads. So it's assault or sexual assault.
Okay.
And then based on the questionings in there, it would break it down into what the proper
I
response
just
is.
feel like I'm just wondering, that's an inclusive number. Like that, sexual assault, like who's that promote additional training and that kind of thing, to use that based on the number of cases that are being reported? Like, how do you gauge that?
I mean, so if you look across the months there, those aren't really high numbers. January is a
No.
little bit of a high number, but those aren't a lot of cases. But remember, one is one victim and one is very time consuming. But I don't look at that and say, we have an issue in that area or that we need dedicated personnel in that area.
Okay, I was just wondering how you were differentiating that with your staff and how training was being assigned for that.
Yeah, there's no additional training. That's
Okay.
required. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, so every police officer is able to handle that. If I deem it to be significant and want to have a detective get involved, that'll be my
then,
decision.
okay, so it just will escalate as needed.
As needed, correct. Oh, yeah, yes,
Okay.
just like all our cases.
Okay,
You know, so we just recently had an animal issue where we're investigating cruelty to animal that may lead to an arrest warrant, right? Very time consuming case. But if you looked at that, it's all an animal thing, you probably are like, an animal thing. So every single case is important
Right.
and every single case is managed and supervised appropriately.
okay. I just didn't know if that.
Yeah, no,
was
great
a
question.
line.
Please, animals are very important. Always,
Without a doubt.
without a doubt.
Okay, any other questions until we get to the executive goals update?
No, I just have my own,
Chief?
Great. So the chairman asked that I do just a quick overview. We had talked a while ago about doing this in September. So he made sure that it wasn't going to be a large PowerPoint presentation with dry ice and just merely a quick summary. So I will go through them with you. So the first one was I was hoping to complete my master's in public safety, public administration with a concentration in public safety by the end of December. It's probably a lofty goal. So that'll probably be more like first quarter of next year. I think doing it in 12 months was probably a stretch, but I tried. But I do think that'll be accomplished in the first quarter of next year. The next one is accomplishing Tier 3 accreditation, which would be 2.5, 3 years prior to what we actually have to attain it at. And I believe that we're going to hear some very good news on that shortly, but certainly by the end of the year. Revitalize and restart the Police Explorer program. And tonight I'm very fortunate to have Patrolman Simpson here, who is one half of a dynamic duo that is heading up our new Explorer post. And I thought that I'd give him just a few minutes to talk to you about our Police Explorer program, and then talk to our two Police Explorers that are here tonight. And we're happy that they're here, very much so. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Patrolman Simpson, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
All right. It's awesome.
All right, so post 106. So Chief Sparrow is currently the chair of our post. We have two sworn law enforcement officers who are in charge of it, myself and Patrolman O'Connell. Patrolman O'Connell is currently deployed overseas right now. She'll be home like a couple months. It'll be nice to get her back. She'll be assisting us with the program when she gets back.
And the fiance of Patrolman Simpson.
Yes, sir.
So he's very
So you'll be
eager for her
glad
to return.
I'm very excited, yes. So currently we have 4 explorers in our program. We have 2 here tonight. The other 2 were not able to make it. We're continuing recruitment. We want to get a total of 10 explorers overall. Be a nice final goal for the program. So the Explorer program is for young adults aged 14 to 21 who are interested in law enforcement. So we give them the opportunity to learn and actually experience law enforcement firsthand in a safe and controlled environment. So primarily we do that through ride-alongs. That's what we're doing tonight. We have Jackson's riding with me tonight, Desmond's riding with Patrolman Mora. So an explorer is assigned an officer for the shift. It's typically a more experienced officer, someone with at least a year on the road. We're not gonna put them with somebody brand new, just kind of give them a better overall experience. They get to actually see what the job is like firsthand, from the call coming in over the radio, everything coming in on the MDT, responding, showing up, doing an investigation, and kind of seeing what pans out from that. Explorers, go ahead.
Quick interruption. Is it for the whole shift or?
It can be for the whole shift. Typically, we do splits. So currently our explorers are in high school right now. I don't typically have them stay out past 8 o'clock at night. They're not riding with me until 11 o'clock or midnight. I think that would be
That was
unreasonable.
the point of my question.
Yes, so we're doing splits right now. When they get older, if they're out of high school and if they're willing to, they can work up to 11 o'clock. They don't work the midnight shift, so it's anytime from 7 AM to 11 PM, they can do a ride-along.
Thanks.
So again, they're not getting out on any kind of violent calls, anything dangerous, traffic stops, but a routine medical call, a past larceny, something like that, just so they can kind of experience what the calls are like and just see that firsthand.
Wait, can I interrupt?
Yes.
Does this mean that I can go on my credit one that I've wanted for so long?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, fine.
So that's the ride-along aspect of it. Now that we have a few more explorers, we're also gonna start doing scenario-based training. So we'll do monthly meetings. We can actually have the explorers do hands-on a mock medical scenario or a mock larceny investigation, or even traffic stops out back where we can park a cruiser, have them use the lights and siren. We'll have another officer or dispatcher act as the person that they're stopping, and they can do their own investigations themselves. They can kind of experience what that's like through the eyes of possibly being an officer. So those are kind of how we do the training. We also have explorers come and work with town functions. So the past two functions that we had were the Old Saybrook Fire Department Parade and Celebrate Saybrook. We actually had Desmond assisting me with both of those. So the explorers are out there doing traffic control, setting up cone patterns, just helping officers wherever they might need them in those large events with a lot of people. We also have the upcoming art show, so we'll have all of our explorers for that as well, assisting officers wherever they might need it. That's kind of an overview of what, the program does. We're sponsored by a program called NERLEA, which is the Northeast Regional Law Enforcement Educational Association. Basically, it's all of New England with New York State and New Jersey combined. We have 60 police explorer posts, and about 850 explorers throughout that New England region. All of them come together. We do annual stations days. So we have all the scenario-based training that the explorers do. Each post will compete against each other to kind of see who's the best, make a little fun competition out of it. We have a stations day and a tactical challenge day, which is more of a hands-on, little bit of room clearance, going hands-on with a suspect. They're not quite fighting, but practicing doing arrest control, putting handcuffs on somebody, that sort of stuff. So we try to make it fun, try to help the kids learn, keep them involved as much as we can. So it's kind of a brief overview of the program. Do you have any other questions about it?
I have a question.
Yes.
What equipment do they have?
So they don't really have a lot of equipment. They do have a duty belt, they have their medical gloves, they have flashlights. That's pretty much it. We're not gonna give them,
No, I understand.
handcuffs or anything along those lines. Yeah, it's just,
It's
it's more of to feel like you're actually a police officer wearing the uniform, wearing a duty belt, and that sort of thing.
Just the keys to the cars, only when they drive.
And how do you do the recruiting? Do you go to the high school and? meet
That's how we
guidance
started out. We
counselors?
went to the high school, set up a little table, tried to get some kids coming in, gave out applications, walked around, talked to them. But the guidance counselors have been the best route for us, is
That's
actually
right.
explaining the program to the guidance counselors, giving them informational materials and applications. The guidance counselors know their kids the best, kind of know who's a good fit for the program, who's interested, and can guide them along the way.
I kind of figured that. That's good.
What kind of time investment is it for them?
For the actual explorers,
Yes.
not very much. Obviously, when they're in school, we're not trying to take away a ton of their time. So I think Desmond's been doing roughly weekly, if not bi-weekly ride-alongs, 4 hours a week, whenever it fits for his schedule. I work a lot of weekends. He's not in school, so he can come right along from 3 PM to 8 PM on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday night. And then again, we'll do a monthly meetings, about an hour or two for the meeting, when we start getting those going.
And you don't introduce them to report writing yet.
Not yet, no, so they're not doing anything that might go up the course. They can't type reports, they can't obviously use the MDTs, they're not running people in the system, nothing along those lines. They can simply watch.
But on that point, when the post is really going, we'll actually have a separate computer that they'll type a summary of what they saw on their shift to get used to doing report writing. So while the officer's in the station doing report writing, they'll have like a little like a journal that they'll keep.
So we do a handwritten version of that currently as well, but eventually it will be typed.
James, did you say how long the program was when you started, or is it, can they be explorers until they turn 21?
Yep.
And when they start now?
Yep, whenever they start. So the earliest you can start is 14 years old, and then it ends once you're 21 years old. You can't
So
be
they
an
can
explorer.
stay in that program that entire
Yep, the entire time, full 7 years.
Oh,
And so pre-COVID, very robust Explorer post. COVID kind of destroyed it because we couldn't have everyone coming in the station. But prior to that, it served as a great feeder program. So right now, if you're an Explorer in good standing and you graduate high school, we'll give you a per diem dispatching job if you pass all the tests and meet the requirements all throughout college. So while your friends are coming home making, $16 an hour in a retail place, you're coming home making $25, $26 an hour in a police department. And so whether you want to go into the field of law enforcement or not, or criminal justice, what a phenomenal thing to have on your resume, that for the past 3.5, 4 years, you've worked for a local police department. And then you yourself have seen past explorers interview in front of you to become patrolmen. So this could be our own self-initiated recruiting program. We just need to get it going again post-COVID, and I found the two best officers that I think could do that, and they're doing so.
That's great, thank you.
So, I'm sorry, you may have said this, but is it local or can, only, local
So
only?
actually, both of our explorers here are from Madison.
Awesome,
So we have
okay,
two-
so
two
we're
Saybrook
spreading,
residents in the
okay,
program, we have 2 out of town.
Absolutely.
that's great,
Yep.
okay.
So not every police department has a program, but our doors are open, right?
Yep.
Why would we limit ourselves?
Never, no, of course.
And it's a rolling application
Yep.
with the student.
Always
can
take it.
just-
Yep.
That's good, that's great, thank you for doing that.
Guys, thank you very much.
Is there
Wait, Laura.
Do they have
a
any questions
review
for us?
process? Like, how do you determine like, okay, yeah, this was a good fit. We chose these guys who are interested in the position and they've been on these calls and things like that. You know, what's the?
So we're like to stay in with the program?
Yeah.
I think it would be more of an involvement thing, if we end up having issues with an explorer or something like that, then we're not a good fit for the program, but so far, everyone's been very involved, they're happy to be part of it. We have been,
It's kind of like an OJT program,
was in the,
on the job training.
similar, yes, somewhat, yeah.
Oh, good.
All right.
Do they have any
Thank you, gentlemen.
questions for us?
If you guys have any questions? No?
If you guys are working the arts and crafts, come by the Lions Den if you need something to eat or drink. Oh, sure, I'll be there both days, all day.
They will give you, I think.
28 years I've never been invited for a hot dog. Okay.
Well, it's better than hot dogs, we're gonna pull one.
I love that.
That's nice.
I'm so happy.
Thank you, guys.
I love this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So going on, the next one is work with the police commission to bring the evaluation matter to resolution, one way or the other. So I'm assuming that we'll do that prior to the end of the year. Work with the police commission to develop the framework for department staffing and structure plan. You've received that and approved that, and so that's done. Work internally and with the police commission on leadership succession planning. I think we've had a lot of conversation about that. We'll have a little bit more tonight during executive session as well. Work internally and with the police committee, I did that. Hold a town hall meeting with the public and the department's leadership team. So we haven't done that yet. And the reason I haven't scheduled that yet is our sergeants, as you know, are spread really thin, right? So we're down on our first line supervision staff. And I really didn't want to load them with one more thing that they would really have to prepare for. So we'll see if we'll have time to do that before the end of the year. Maybe it'll be in response to the perf study. When that finally comes in and is released, maybe that's when we'll set up a panel, let people come ask their questions, to our leadership. Otherwise, we might have to push that to the first of the year, but I'll give you an update in our executive session about the upcoming sergeant's exam. So we might have more people available for that specific role, which would be nice. Our summertime community picnic, we combined, as reported last month, with our school supply drive. So lots of hot dogs. I think there was a grocery run in the middle of the school. So
Was there?
and we bought well over 100 worth of things for everyone. So we're really happy with that response. And then, the final one was continue to be a bold, vocal public safety leader that advocates, ensures priorities, protects, speaks, and leads.
The modest goal.
And the very modest goal, and I think that I more than achieved that to date, and will continue to do so through the end of the year. So that's the quick overview, 50,000-foot overview of the executive goals, but really excited to bring the explorers to you. I know that was something that everyone was really interested in. I'll be really excited to talk to you about Tier 3 accreditation coming very, very soon. So I think good things are happening.
That's nice, thank you.
Sure.
Any questions?
I have a question. Is there a possibility to add in your executive report events? So you do have like an overview each time that kind of gives a snapshot of it, but kind of a little bit more, or maybe you can detail a little bit more as to when you are having a community event, like how much of your staff is being assigned to that. So drill it down just a little bit more so we know, like thinking long-term of budget expenses and type of thing.
Yeah, but I don't think I'd run a cost center for you because sometimes
No, I'm just
that's
saying,
day to day.
You had an upcoming event, you just did that with the back to school supply and that kind of thing, but more so that we know what has happened and what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll continue to report on the events that we do. I mean, I don't think I,
But something
Don't
more
do that.
scheduled, so that, you know, the arts event is coming up, so.
but that's not our event. That's
No,
just a
but I'm
community
just
event that
saying
we
a
have to
community
police.
event that there could be police involved or something. Something just to kind of give us a little bit more information, like where you fit in and what your team is doing.
So I will share that on Sunday, we had a bike event for the whole community. We shut down, the police shut down the causeway and they led the whole crew
Oh,
go,
yeah,
and it
that's
was absolutely amazing. Was it a police event? Nah,
I don't know.
but they helped, so,
Yeah.
if that's what you would
Yeah,
like.
something like, I didn't know that that happened, so I
Yeah.
just think that if we
Yeah.
had
Well.
something like at a glance kind of thing.
I
It would
mean,
be
it's,
nice to
it's
see.
how involved in the community you wanna be. So like, we have alerts that go out, right? We have,
Oh, the garden club planting and cleanup days.
Right, I mean,
I think,
I just don't know what a commission report would be. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
no, more just like an event, a topic of events.
Yeah, and so I believe for the last 15 years, whenever we've done something, I'll be like, hey, we did the turkey drive, or hey, we're doing the toy drive, or hey, we're doing the diaper
I'm
drive.
looking more as like what's upcoming so that we were aware of that. Like, I didn't know about the bike event. That would have been nice to have known. I would have liked to walk down to see that.
well, it's bike ride only,
Well,
so.
that's okay.
I wouldn't have been
Still-
able to ride the bike,
You know,
so.
no, same, like I was at the
I just
table.
think that if there's
But-
things that, you know, a date is penned in and you're aware of it, I think that it would be nice for us to know too.
If they're Old Saybrook Police Department sponsored events, or you want like a community calendar kind of
Oh,
thing? That's what I
no,
don't
not a
understand.
community calendar, just things that like, you know, hey, I'm doing the turkey drive in November, this is the date. We're doing school supplies, this is the date. But we have the dates a month in advance, so it's like at a glance, we know what's happening.
Sometimes we don't have that, but we'll do our
Okay,
best.
if you do have it, it would be nice to know.
Or
I mean, they do crowd control at St. James, right? Church, St. John's Church. Like, they do it every single week, so why, like, what are you expecting?
Oh, no, that's not.
No, I
not
think
much
Jackie's saying like when the turkey drive's coming, or the toy drive, or the diaper drive. I know we
Okay.
do get some, you know, some.
But it's
Yeah,
more like
But
info
some things
after
are
the
just
fact,
police duty, right, okay.
kind of like,
Just so we can.
So
promote the
February is
initiatives.
always diapers. It's time to do your duty, is what we call that.
right. So in January, you're gonna let us know, hey, in
But
February.
it's the
we're
same thing
having-
every year. Yes,
Yeah.
I can give you a calendar of like months that what we normally do.
Okay, that would be helpful. That way we'll be able to know coming up what the plan is.
I don't think I understand what you mean by what the plan is. Like, I'm not gonna give you my staffing for the upcoming
Oh,
art
no,
show.
I'm not
That's what-
asking for
Right, so
that. I'm
You just
saying,
think to be able to promote it probably.
Yeah,
If
like-
people are wondering what's going on.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
if somebody says, hey, what's happening in town, or whatever, they're either gonna read about it in the Harbor News, or a neighbor may explain it to them, but if they ask us, we could say, oh, in November, the police department is having a turkey event at Stop and Shop.
every November.
The 2 weeks before Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know,
Every
definitely
December,
stop
toys.
by.
I think for you, this is a matter of, you know what's happening month to month. For us, it's not the same thing. And I think what may be a part of the solution or a suggestion I could make is, you know, just drop us a line, you know, a couple of weeks ahead of time on email to all of us saying, these are the things that are coming up at the department. And I think that would help for us to know what's coming.
Yeah, I mean, so listen, I understand what you're trying to say. I'll give you a list of what we normally do in the months. I think I communicate a lot with the commission in between meetings, and I think that I have to balance that on communicating too much in between the meetings. So, because this is the forum, right, where I'm supposed to be meeting and briefing, and when something's going on significantly, I do send out those emails. So let me start first with kind of like a calendar of events, almost like an FTD calendar, right?
Okay,
This is kind of what we do in January, this is kind of what we do in February, that kind of thing.
and if we need to plug something in along the way,
Yeah, absolutely.
you let us know, and that, we'll take that on. And then you could just let us know in your executive reports, and we're like, okay. that's-
Yeah, and again, I think do that, but sure.
More like something that we could tangible.
But what are you gonna take on? Like,
There's nothing to take on.
we aren't
It's just
invited to
knowing.
these events. We aren't invited to like,
She's gonna raise turkeys for the turkey drive.
yeah, are you gonna, are you gonna
Color
like
like
make the diapers? Like,
Oh, I
I mean-
love cousins.
oh,
I-
I mean, it's not really,
I think we got it.
Got this.
Yeah.
I got it.
okay,
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
okay.
Okay, any other questions on the executive goals? Okay.
No.
Let's move on to the next item, discussion and possible action regarding crosswalk safety concerns. Jeff?
So before we get to Jeff, so the chair had asked that this be placed on the agenda, which obviously it was. And I thought to myself, before you have a conversation about forming a subcommittee or whatever your thoughts are, I thought it'd be best to brief the commission on what's actually currently going on. And I think that everyone would find that probably helpful. So the best person for that is our town engineer that works on all these projects, sometimes exclusively with the first selectman, sometimes the first selectman and I, sometimes with land use, the first selectman and I. So Jeff's usually involved in every single project that the town of Oak Saybrook does that requires regulatory oversight, regulatory review, and pretty much measurements. And so we're very, very fortunate to have him. He's been dedicated to the town. He'll tell you how long he's been working for the town, but as a contractor, but he's been through every single major project that I've been involved in. And his counsel is always steadfast and proper, and we appreciate the time and dedication he's given to the town. So with that, I will turn that over to Jeffrey Jenkins.
Good evening, everyone. The chief asked me specifically to update you on what we're working on with respect to the Main Street crosswalks
Yes.
here in the downtown area. But he also asked me to provide an overview of other projects we're working on that may be safety related. And, other than the crosswalks in the downtown area, most of the projects have focused on sidewalk improvements for pedestrian safety. And that's really a function of all the grant opportunities that are available to municipalities through the Community Connectivity Grant Program, the STEEP Grant Program, and other various grant programs out there. So before I get into that, just to give you a quick update, right now we are just wrapping up a project for sidewalks from the Dairy Queen, essentially the old post road, to the Westbrook Town line. That project is under review by Connecticut DOT now, and we expect that project to go out to bid probably the end of this year, beginning of next year, with construction starting in the springtime. We're also working on another project. It's a lot zip project. It was actually, we designed it in 2018. It was a TOD project, which is a transportation oriented development project. And that basically will have sidewalks and lighting, the decorative lighting that we've used across the street in the parking lot and the sidewalk that goes to Lynn Street. That'll go essentially from Elm Street all the way to Stage Road, including Stage Road, Main Street intersection to North Main Street. And those will have sidewalks all along the street. It'll improve a lot of the sidewalks that we have in that area. The TOD grant was 100% grant that funded design. There was no money for construction, so that project pretty much was on the shelf for about the last 6 years or so. The town now has a grant, it's a lots of grant, that would fund 100% of the construction of that project. They've actually had that grant for a few years now, but the project kind of got bogged down with necessary easements.
Sir, one second.
Yes.
What is Sage Road? I'm
Stage
blanking.
Road, it's by CBS.
Oh, like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, CBS to North Main Street.
thank you,
across-
thank you. I
across
don't
there.
know why I was blanking. I'm
Yeah.
like, what
So
are
if you think
talking
about Jeff's timeline, think
Yeah.
about all the housing that went in on North Main Street,
Yeah,
right? And so the connecting sidewalks to make that a pedestrian friendly zone was applied for around the same time construction was finishing for there, right? So this is all part of a massive plan of development and a sidewalk connection plan that the planning commission has dealt with.
Correct.
Even when you're doing the sidewalk, are they gonna fix ones that are bad. Like if you come out of paperback and you walk toward Waltz, that's a horrible sidewalk right there. Now, how do those get fixed? Do they fall underneath the same grant as their sidewalks?
No, I mean, the grants, they pretty much want to, improve, accessibility in areas where you don't have safe access now. They don't like to do, what they call maintenance projects. So, there have been some grants that they, funded some of those type of projects, but they're not ones that they really like to fund.
Let's keep our focus back on the safety issues here.
Okay,
But maybe as local traffic authority, we could have some sort of say in that.
On what, fixing
I
sidewalks?
don't know.
No,
No, that's the
that's
town.
not, that's
I'm just gonna keep saying it.
That's
It's a public, that's a public works. fund.
Yes.
Alright.
right.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's that project, that project got bogged down a little bit because of easements. There were 10 permanent easements and 14 temporary easements that were required for that project. So that took a lot of negotiations with adjacent property owners. So I think all but 2 of those 26 easements are now in place. We have agreements for those final 2. So we expect that project hopefully to go to construction in the fall. Carl didn't want to have 2 simultaneous projects on Route 1 going at the same time. I'll also add on that one that's going to Westbrook Town Line, we're also working with Westbrook to continue that sidewalk from Westbrook through to the Vista Complex. Got a lot of those folks apparently walked over to Max's place and then at Spencer Plain Road intersection.
Mhm.
So Westbrook is working on that. So it'll provide a nice connection. In terms of crosswalks, that Watson project, which is from Elm Street to Stage Road, also includes a crosswalk across the head of Main Street, parallel with Route 1. And that'll involve some signal modifications. So that crosswalk will be funded as part of that project, which was
This is by Monkey Farm.
No, so this will be new. This is from Chamber of Commerce
Chamber of Commerce.
across Main Street, parallel with Route 1.
Okay, so are they gonna add the different things on all 4 sides, or what are we doing?
Yeah, well, there's pedestrian cycles, I believe, across Route 1 on both ways.
I think 2, right?
And also North Main Street. So there's 3 crosswalks there now. There's just not one across Main Street from
Saybrook Country Bar.
Saybrook Country.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be part of that project.
So the
Another,
battle there, the battle there will be my request to have that be what's called exclusive pedestrian phasing, which means if the light is red and the walk sign is go, no traffic should be moving. Currently, the DOT does not like something called exclusive pedestrian phasing. They like the driver to be able to stop, look, and take a right on red, so that traffic is not bogged down. Again, I feel that when the pedestrian gets the go sign, they should be able to assume that everything is stopped, but that's always the pinch at the state DOT.
yeah, and the overhead signals, we're not traffic engineers. That's being done by a traffic engineer that's working along with us, because that involves changing the signals, allowing for pedestrian phasing. See, other than this, we're also just started working on a crosswalk at Maple Street and Main Street, where there's been requests to cross the other side of the street there. And we have a traffic engineer that is on board now and is working on modifying that signal for pedestrian phasing. So that would be something that we're also hoping will come online.
And if you remember, the commission remembers, the ladies come to it, so this is, right, so I said I went to Carl and back to Carl, and that's where engineer. So this is the process, right? It takes a while to get to
The
where.
crosswalk-
So we're at Maple Ave,
Maple and Main,
Maple and Main.
Yep.
and it's
to
just
be
that
able
one?
to go across. Yeah, but it's a state road.
Yeah.
And so it involves
Yeah.
some stops.
Yes, that was.
Right.
So that's ongoing now.
That's on me.
The ones the chief asked me to kind of go through in more detail with you are the Main Street crosswalks. There are 3 crosswalks that, we're doing now as part of one project that I believe is being funded through the ARPA funds, I believe. There's actually a total of 5 that, we're looking at, but we're doing these first 3, first, and I'll give you an overview of those. And if I get into too much detail here, just stop me.
No, there will not be too much detail.
All right, these 3 crosswalks, we have, one here that's, one here at, Elm Street and Poker Street, which is an existing crosswalk. There's one, site number 2 here, that's the existing crosswalk, this is Waltz right in here, okay? And the other one is site number 3 here, which is at St. John's Church. And I've got a big set of drawings here, and I'm just gonna go through the ones that I think you might be most interested in, because there's a lot of details. And all 3 of these projects are basically gonna include some bump outs to get pedestrians to the rear of the cars, so people can hopefully see them. And RRFBs, which are rapid rectangular flashing beacons. And those are pedestrian actuated on either side of Main Street, and there'll also be a signal in the middle of the median.
When do you anticipate this is going to happen?
This will be, we've got to have a commitment by the end of this year in terms of the ARPA funds. Because then any other ARPA funds, I guess, have to be given back to the government.
So if you have to have a commitment by the end of the year, say you do get the money, how long will it take them to put this into practice?
This would go out to bid again, probably the very beginning of the year, say January, February, for a project this next construction season. Okay.
Could you repeat what you just said,
Yes.
like, because I was focusing on the pictures, I wasn't
Yeah.
even listening, so can you
Okay.
repeat what you said about the flashing?
Okay,
Okay, thank
what
you.
we're gonna do, for instance, this is at Elm Street.
Yeah,
And a lot of the sidewalks now go into the back of parking spots, they
Uh-huh.
go directly into telephone poles, and so we're gonna orient these, so we avoid those conflicts. Elm Street, what we'll do is we'll have a bump out here, okay? And at Colder Street, we'll have a bump out here, which will get pedestrians to the rear of the parking spots right now, so they're a little bit more visible to oncoming traffic.
so when you say bump out, sorry, it's
Yes.
like a curb?
It's not gonna be a curb only because, well, let me put it this way, there's gonna be a flush curb with the pavement,
Wheelchairs.
okay?
Yeah?
It's
Well, like,
really
it's a
because,
wheelchair.
yeah, Main
Oh,
Street is so,
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Main Street's so flat
Yeah,
that if we built curbs up, everything would be sloped down to the sidewalk and it run all the water right
so
down the
then what is
sidewalk.
a bump out?
What it's gonna be a flush concrete curb, which is a flush concrete curb here. This on either side is gonna be, an exposed aggregate concrete, it's got like a pebbly finish. There were a variety of options that were presented to Carl on that, and this is what was selected. And then these sidewalks right here will be the colored and stenciled sidewalks that'll go out to, a detectable warning strip right here on each side. And then at each location, there'll be, maybe I'll
We're basically building a peninsula
But,
from the side of Main Street to increase the visibility of the pedestrian to the vehicle operator on Main Street who wants to cross.
but it's flush with the road,
It
Yes.
has to be
so
flush
it's
with them
not
for a
even
variety of
like
reasons.
they could,
So it has to be flush because we have to
There'll be a
plow.
visual difference in the
there won't be a
surface.
visual, right, right.
Okay, so
Well-
there'll be a visual difference in the surface, a distinct visual difference.
Will that go across the
Okay.
whole road, the visual difference?
There will be, visual difference here, and then these will be, an imprinted thermoplastic sidewalk that'll have a brick type pattern, so
Okay.
that'll be colored as well.
Okay.
That'll be colored as well.
And I've seen in West Hartford where they have in the center of the road, it is a almost like a stop sign with red flashing lights that must get triggered when somebody's on the side of the road. Is
Yeah, I'm
that?
not familiar with, West.
Okay.
Is that what we're getting?
Yes, what exactly are these lights?
Yeah.
So you gotta look at the folder. There you go.
These pictures right here, for oncoming traffic, there'd be one right by where the pedestrians are standing, getting ready to cross. Be the same thing on the opposite side of the street. And then it'd be a double facing one that would be right in the median, right at, just before the crosswalk. So you'd have a lighted feature here, a lighted feature like this over here, and then a double-sided one in the middle, where the median is now.
And they,
Hard to miss.
but they have
It
to
would be
press
hard
the
to miss.
button
They would have
only
to-
at each end, sorry, not in the middle. They want them to press it again
They
in the
wouldn't,
middle.
no,
Okay.
no.
So is this gonna be done also at the top of Main where the barn is?
Top of Main will actually have a signalized intersection, and it'll be, controlled by the overhead signal. But it is also be a press button type of thing,
Okay,
but it's not these type of things. It's more of the ones you'd see downtown in the city where you have a pedestal and you have the thing that'll beep and tell you how many,
so the beeping's at the top of Main Street.
So
Yeah.
our, one second, so our crosswalks on Main Street are called mid-block crosswalks, okay? So they're crosswalks that are located at a non-signalized intersection. If Main Street were built new today, it would be very unlikely that we would get the crosswalks that we have. Because crosswalks nowadays are only installed at signalized intersections, so you can get the walk, don't walk light that corresponds with the traffic control signal that's telling the vehicles what to do. So this enhancement is specific to mid-block crosswalks that are already in existence.
The way you put these up at the ends, where you said you're gonna make that blocking, go to the end of the road. The car parked there, the way you're coming, is that gonna block the person again? Cause right now, when you're driving down, like, if you're going towards St. John's, and you get to that walkway, all you see is two heads, because the car is there. Is that gonna go away with the way?
no, and I don't think it'll completely go away. I think, the safety feature are really these rapid rectangular flashing beacons. These are up higher. Okay, so you'll see these right here are gonna be flashing, as will the center one and as will the other side.
So that will let drivers know someone's in the crosswalk ready to go across.
That's correct.
Okay.
And Jeff, are we eliminating any parking spaces when we make that safety peninsula?
There are a couple parking spots here and there that will be eliminated in order to provide these bump outs. There will be some changes to the handicap accessible parking.
Okay.
Most of them in town don't meet current standards in terms of the width of the parking space and the access aisle. So anytime you modify, the existing parking, you have to comply with ADA.
So what are we doing? Are we adding more or are we just,
No, what
Building
we're trying
better.
to do is make it better. So,
okay,
here, we're providing, this is in front of the Liberty Bank. Okay, that
Yeah.
was still, even though it was done
Yeah.
not too long ago, still doesn't conform. So we're making that a conforming space.
so the only thing I'm confused about, we're doing the top of Main, we're doing these, are they all gonna conform, like, is it all gonna be the same?
Mhm.
Or are we separating them?
It's different projects.
Different projects, but they
Different
will still
locations.
be the same, not upgrades, but like, they'll still be the same, like,
It'll be consistent.
okay, thank
Yes.
you, consistent,
It'll be
yes,
consistent.
okay.
So the mid-block crosswalks will be consistent, and the one at the head of Main Street will be consistent with a signalized.
Okay, yeah, so
So
we don't have to redo another one later on because it wasn't following this,
No,
Okay.
these three will all be put out at the same time,
thank you,
under one bid.
okay,
There's two other ones we need to work on.
which ones?
Sheffield Street.
Yep.
And, actually, I developed concept plans a long time ago. We met with the chief and Carl. And we're gonna make some little bit of changes. I think we're gonna shift it on the opposite side of Sheffield.
Wait,
Oh,
Sheffield
perfect.
across, like
Sheffield-
where the middle school kids come out?
Correct. Correct.
Okay,
That
wanna-
one is gonna change and,
that makes sense.
also wanted to introduce one, to get across the street to the Cape, where the new parking spot is, the new parking areas.
Yeah.
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 And that was something, suggestion of the chief, so, those are gonna be a little harder to get.
That'll be
because
a new mid-block
It's a new
crosswalk.
mid-block, and there's no existing median there, so there's no refuge island in there, so that one's gonna be a little bit tougher to,
But it's also so close to the other two, it's like you're.
Well, nobody wants to walk,
Yeah,
nobody wants to walk from the
But
parking
even,
lot
but even
over to
middle
the
school
other.
kids, they go across the Rivermore and they're like, let me just cross my son does
Yes,
that. I'm
no,
like,
I know.
you are going to.
So the one at the top of Main Street will basically be like
Yeah.
how you cross from the firehouse to Old Boston Post
Yeah.
Road. Okay.
That should eventually be a box, right?
Okay,
So in
yes.
theory, we should have a box. Now, the intersection isn't perfectly square because we're in colonial Old Saybrook. But if you go like to different states, like go to Florida, right? Everything is square and box. That's the way you're supposed to be doing the traffic designing. So a box of crosswalks at a major intersection that's signalized, I'd like to have the exclusive pedestrian phasing, is the way to go. Now we gotta deal with our, potentially unsafe mid-block crosswalks that have been around in Old Saybrook for decades upon decades, right?
Yeah.
And so all of us have driven down Main Street and went, oh, my God,
Mm-hmm.
we get it. So this, Jeff, when did we start working on this? How long ago?
a long time ago, chief.
So this has been a conversation for a long time, and what happens, and Jeff alluded to it, is sometimes there's grant money, but the grant money is design only. So we do this great job on design, and then it gets shelved because there's no money to do anything. And so when we design this, what we want it to do is get away from, as best as we can, just seeing the head in between the two cars before you're actually in the roadway. So the idea of the peninsula is, I hate to say it, it's kind of like walking the plank. You're coming out a little bit, but you're still in a safe area. You're triggering the signalized mid-block crosswalk actuator that's warning vehicular traffic, and then you're crossing Main Street. So not perfect, because mid-block crosswalks are not perfect. But an immense safety enhancement. But right now, only the funds possibly for 3 out of the 5.
But, okay, I guess what bothers me is why is the Sheffield Street not, a priority? And I should have.
It's not that it's not a priority, there's really.
There's more to it, or?
Well, that one is going to be changed from
Bless you.
One side of the intersection.
one side of the intersection to the other side of the intersection. So it's a little bit more involved.
Okay.
And I'm comforted that when there are a majority of the school children using that intersection, there's a police officer directing.
Oh,
traffic.
100%, yes.
And
No,
so
yes.
the other ones, there really isn't. St. John's Church, Sunday morning, great. But when Main Street's hustling and bustling and all the businesses are on the more of the north end and, patrons want to cross Main Street, we have to do our best to try to make that a little bit safer. And that's what these plans were.
So the ARPA money then will be to actually do the work.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, not for implementation of design or.
Design stuff.
Oh, right, I understand,
design
but
stuff.
sometimes,
Yeah.
there's other things. that-
And when you said construction season, that means after the fall,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
typically
probably.
March, April, depending on.
Yeah.
the availability of the contractors.
Yeah, and plus, we would never do this in the middle of summer on Main Street,
Oh, boy.
right? That would be a disaster. I mean, because they're doing significant work. This is not.
That'd be
This is not
fun
painting.
though, let's do it.
This is not just.
Let's do it.
I'd
So I-
like to see it sooner rather than later, of course. I
Of
mean,
course.
it is, it's just really very dangerous when you crossing those streets.
And so, in my mind, let's play this out, right? So first of all, I think this was an important briefing for you folks.
Yes, thank you.
What you need to know is none of this was developed during your tenure as police, well, Renee's, but
Correct.
other than, not during your tenure, right? And so I know that there's significant concern, but before we meet and try to recreate the wheel, I need you to see what we're doing. Now, fast forward, let's say ARPA funds cannot be used for this, or they choose not to use it for this. That's when I think the police commission should be sending communication to the board of selectmen saying, we want this project prioritized, figure it out.
Well, and that's why this conversation and the
It's
one we
important.
had last time
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
important, it needs to happen.
We
That's why I
had
brought
$3
him here.
million surplus.
In the
so
meantime.
there's money.
Yes.
That's what I mean, right, but that's what I mean. And so I know that there's some, I didn't get into it, but I know there's some question about the ARPA funding and what projects are supposed to be funded or not. So I don't know where this fits in with that. It's just not what I do for you. But if there is a funding issue, I do think we should, Renee, talk to the, Board of Selectmen from the police commission and say, this is important to us, please fund it.
I think this topic is prompted, not that we think we know what we're doing traffic wise, because I definitely don't. But because we get a lot of emails from people worried about speeding, crosswalks, that's, in no way do I take this as, I wanna take this over because I do not.
I never thought, but I think you seeing this is so important to
Yeah.
know what's going on.
1,000%, yeah.
I have a quick question. Who would be responsible? Why can we just not, at the top of Main Street, have a no turn on red?
So that's a state DOT issue.
But I mean, we had a gentleman get hit and killed there. Like, I don't understand anyone with half a brain would say, yeah, that's not a good idea, there's a
Well, how
crosswalk
do you, how
there.
do you get that moved? I mean, how do you
Who
move it
like,
so that
So when it
happens?
comes time for the state to redesign the intersection, they will put the design out to us. We will analyze it and we will add our comments. It is up to them whether they choose to act on our comments or not. And so Jeff will tell you, if he sees it or his engineer sees it, every time an intersection comes up for discussion, I request exclusive pedestrian phasing. Because again, I believe when they see the walk sign, you should be able to think that there's a red everywhere else. That is not the national standard. The national standard is that we expect drivers to take due care to not enter crosswalks when there's pedestrians. And so a right on red is preferred because it increases what's called throughput, right? So it increases, there's a limited amount of stacking, there's increased throughput because the lights only are timed so long. Now there's been advancement with the overhead signals. So the little cameras, right, that went up. And at the time, 2-3 years ago, the first selectman called me and said, why are you putting cameras up at every intersection? And I said, where would that money come from? Like, how would I do that on my own? It's not a camera, it's a stacking beam. So it can see how many cars are out instead of the thing being, the trip being in the road, the trip is now with that camera.
I got a question.
So it's not a video camera that like someone's watching. the
Well,
intersection.
so,
But this case of this happened, and it's gonna be a while that it's gonna happen. Is there a way that we could implement that you have a no parking on the car going the way you're going in front of that, so you can see the person? Because with that car park, all you see is two heads. And if we gotta go another 6 to 9 months, why don't we just take that parking spot out? You'll see the people standing there until this is made, and then we got a solution. And
So two things then. First of all, not a bad thought, but let me give you the two things. Number one, merchants on Main Street are not happy with this. So the reduction, well, they speak with a very loud taxpayer voice for the Chamber of Commerce, right? So it's a constituency. So they're not very happy with the elimination of the parking spaces. So Jeff and his team actually revisited this several times in the phasing and working with the chamber through Carl to make sure that we were only eliminating parking as best we could, right? Especially when we're enhancing handicap parking. When we make the handicap parking stalls to standard to code, it takes up a little bit more width because they're all van spots. And so that also eliminates some parking. And so if you only have frontage on Main Street and you have no parking lot behind you, those 4 or 5 spots in front of your store equal your day. No one drives an extra mile to park to walk to the store, right? It's a matter of convenience. And so we have some merchants that we have to talk to from time to time who try to put out their own cones that say parking for this store only. And that is not the case. There isn't one store on Main Street that is zoned parking spaces. And so they can't claim them, right? And so we have issues with that. So yes, 2, it's only as good as, people obeying the rule. So we're not gonna put a tow truck on Main Street and hook every car that's parked in this no parking spot. I totally understand where you're coming from. I don't think it would work, and I think it would cause more of an issue with our merchants than it would actually help.
okay, so I have one last question, it doesn't have to do with Main Street, but with driving. Okay, so at the end of McDonald's, if you're going towards Old Post Road, you come off Ingham Hill, right? There's 2 lights at the end of the road. So, but it's a 1-lane drive. The whole right on red, there's just not enough room. So I guess my question is, why are there 2 lights?
There has to be 2 lights at every intersection.
Facing me,
Yes,
facing me,
it's
okay.
because if one fails, the other one has to work.
Oh, so it doesn't mean
So
that
if
there
you go
has
to
to be
any,
two lanes?
go to any intersection, you'll see.
I thought it had to be two lanes.
Well, there's not
because
room
there's
for two cars there. People try to squeeze through, but
No,
there's
and
not.
that's my second question, it's like. Can I just stand out there?
Let me ask a question you may not be able to answer, and Chief, you may. How will we know when the ARPA fund decision is final?
So public meeting, right? The ARPA committee is a public agency, so they have their meetings. They're an ad hoc committee of the Board of Selectmen, so you can go to either the ARPA committee. We could send a letter to the ARPA committee saying how important we feel that this is. Board of Selectmen, so ARPA recommendation back to the Board of Selectmen, then it goes to the Board of Finance. And then ARPA funds are approved only at town meeting. So there's a whole transparent process to how this happens. And so what my suggestion would be is if the commission likes the work that Jeff and his team have done over many years
Yeah.
on this project, then maybe I can give you some language that you can authorize the chairman to send a letter on behalf of the commission to the Board of Selectmen endorsing this project.
I applaud this project.
Yes.
I think
But so,
this
what
is
my
great.
understanding of the ARPA funds is that you had applied for all of that, like everybody who applied a long time ago.
And there's been like a town vote, yeah.
So this was applied for by the first selectman.
Right, so everybody applied for those monies and then you had to go back, like the Lions Club got it, they're giving scholarships or doing different things because they couldn't fundraise as much. So this money has been approved. Now, I don't understand why it's gonna be a matter of if it can be used for that, because that's what would have been applied for, right?
So I read the minutes of the last Board of Selectmen meeting, and there's some stuff that I'm not clear about, but there seems to be some language in there that maybe projected projects or past projects or one or the other
Okay,
might be being questioned by our town auditors and town council to
okay,
see if they actually fit under the ARPA guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know much more than what I
Okay.
read.
But I think your letter, your idea of a letter
Is a good one.
I think that's a great action item for this commission.
I would agree.
And I can tell you that, you know, Carl has been pestering me for quite a while on wrapping this project up, so I know he's
Anxious to
fully
do it.
behind this project. He's indicated to me that he gets questions at Board of Finance meetings of when is this project gonna be ready to go?
And quite frankly, I would take it one step further. I would not only endorse this project, but I would include some language in your letter that talks about the other two crosswalks that are not going for this
Right,
funding,
the
saying
3 out
that
of 5.
you hope that gets funded as soon as possible.
Like the Sheffield one. Right.
I do have a question.
No,
When
she
you
doesn't.
mentioned
What? No.
commitment by the end of the year, can you just explain that a little bit more?
The ARPA funds have to be committed by the end of this year. That's a federal deadline for expenditure of ARPA funds.
Okay.
They don't have to be spent this year.
Just
They
committed,
don't have, they have to be committed and. you know,
just encumbered like our report.
Yeah, I've had different interpretations from different towns as to what committed means, but I think what we're, you know, aiming to do is to get this approved by Connecticut DOT. And this site actually was submitted to Connecticut DOT in July. And before we finish the other two sites, we're hoping to get their comments so we can apply it. Unfortunately, it took them a couple of months to get back to us, but we have addressed the comments they had on this one, and we incorporated those same comments into site 2 and 3, and they've told me that they will expedite the review of this, because we've already had some conference calls to just tidy up the last ends. But it's, you know, it's as usual with DOT, the devil's in the details, so.
And so, just so everyone gets that, so we spent a lot of time on the local level, then this goes to state engineering, state DOT engineering, and they, Jeff's excellent, but if he wasn't, they rip a plan apart. And Jeff will even still get comments back, and he'll have to either explain why he needs an exception, or why we designed it in a certain way, or we simply have to change our design to meet their requirements.
Right.
So does that affect the commitment that you're submitting at the end of the year
Well, these plans will be submitted,
with the commitment?
resubmitted this week.
Okay,
Probably within the next day or two. And they've, you know, indicated to me that they will get it back, as quickly as possible, understanding that there is a deadline for
Yeah, that's
commitment of
what
the
I was
funds.
going.
So my hope is that by the end of October, beginning of November, we'll be squared away with Connecticut DOT. We can put the project out to bid, so we can have some numbers in December before the funding has to be committed, because there's been different interpretations of what commitment means. I think the safest way to address that is to get bids in and be prepared to award a contract. I don't think there'd be any bigger commitment than that. So that's what we're aiming towards.
Thank you
So
for
we
the
don't get into
explanation.
that issue.
So what did town meeting for the ARPA?
I'm pretty positive, yeah, wasn't there just?
No,
recently
yeah,
town meeting?
they do it by item, so like they'll do like
Yeah.
5 items, town meeting, 5 more items, or not 5 necessarily, but.
No
like,
public hearing, but it goes through the process. So it goes ARPA to Board of Selectmen recommendation to Board of Finance.
Yeah.
Board of Finance back to Board of Selectmen, notice of town meeting, public comment, vote.
I would think that we have to have that process completed by the end of the year. And I don't know if that's even possible, but let's try it.
But
Yeah,
it sounds to me more like the sticking point is, can the ARPA money be used for this?
I don't know, that's not my call. In my mind, the sticky thing right now is
The
DOT saying, yay, okay.
Right, but even, so if they say yes or no, we don't even know, it sounds like we don't even know if we can use the money for that.
That's up to Carl, that's not my deal.
So what I have watched some of these meetings and apparently we can use the money for this. It does sound like the DOT though may be the problem.
No, hopefully not.
Not just getting
Yeah,
approval for the
yeah.
project.
Yeah, but no, everything else is okay.
So my
I'm
goal-
confident ARPA allows this.
Okay,
So my goal for this commission is that when there's a significant project, that we bring in the people to do this. So like in my mind, the next significant project in town will be Whole Foods and the redesigning of a couple different intersections. When that happens, like I've done with other major projects, again, you guys are not on the commission, but when we did Big Y, we brought folks in, I brought all the plans, we talked about the new signalization, where new signals would go. We'll do the same thing when Whole Foods comes. Is that still a thing? I'm assuming it's still a thing.
I haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard
They
anything,
haven't-
but let's say it goes in. So another major development, boom, when we did North Main Street and all those condos came about. We brought this stuff here, we explained, you got a traffic engineering report, et cetera, et cetera. So big projects, you will get that as a commission.
And when's the deadline that you're thinking the letter should be submitted?
I would say
I would say
tonight,
tonight.
you should
Yes.
authorize the chairman to maybe work with me, if you're even comfortable with that language, to come up with a letter that the commission would send to the Board of Selectmen endorsing this project.
Okay.
And the two
And the
additional.
other two, yeah.
Then the other 2 streets.
Yeah. And I think that's your best.
I invite a motion.
I would say, let's do it.
I'll say,
Yes.
Jill, that's been your most succinct
No,
motion.
that is just,
All right, so are you formalizing?
Yes,
yes,
so,
it's great job.
yes, put
well,
it together.
it would be a motion authorizing the chair to meet with the chief to develop a letter to the Board of Selectmen.
Supporting
endorsing-
the crosswalk
endorsing
enhancements.
the crosswalk enhancements
On Main
on
Street.
Main Street, as presented by the town
priority.
engineer at tonight's meeting.
In addition to the other 2 streets?
I think if we say Main Street crosswalks, I think we got them all.
Oh, you're incorporating
As
them.
presented.
Okay,
Put them all in.
And
Okay.
they-
perfect.
As a priority.
Yes, as a priority.
So I will move that.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Nothing.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then what I'll do, if it's okay with you, in my executive reports, why don't we just add like a traffic thing? And I will keep you updated as to where this is. So when it comes back from DOT, Jeff can let me know and I can say, hey, the 3 crosswalks came back from DOT.
Yes,
Right, and that way you're constantly, I believe that'll be a better scenario than a 2 or 3 person subcommittee.
listen, it absolutely is. This to me is, I had no clue this stuff was happening.
Yeah, the visual was super.
And this solved it.
So, and I'll ask, what year did we start doing this?
I don't even remember, chief. It was a
Right?
long time
But that's
ago.
not even comforting to me because it sounds like this just took such a long time.
You should see all the different traffic development like done by the COG. There's always this crazy amount of money for planning. Yeah, and some of it's all spent, and some of it's never, ever used. It drives me nuts.
Well, I
It
also
must
want
be
to
the
say,
engineer's lobby.
I don't know, Jeff, is it the engineer?
Can we have also an update, like, not of just the 3 crosswalks, I know you still have other stuff to say, but like, not of just the 3 but like, can we have updates on when the other 2 maybe?
Yeah, I think
Okay,
we'll just incorporate, and as I learn about things.
thank you.
I think sometimes, I could be very wrong, that the commission or the public thinks that in a dark hallway, I'm sketching out enhancements to traffic stuff as the legal traffic authority and not telling anyone. That is just so not the case. It's a crazy, long, transparent process.
oh, that is a very good point, and it was part of what I was going to say, in that putting this on the agenda was in no way a reflection on the agency not doing a job.
I'm not a traffic engineer, that's why we hired them.
But we talked an awful lot about putting police officers there and, you know, this is where we evolved from last meeting to now. And it in no way is a reflection on.
No, it's quite the opposite. Like I heard, as I explained to Chubb when I called and said, hey, I invited the traffic engineer. I heard your concern. I heard and felt your thirst for knowledge, right? And so here it is. But Commissioner Mitzak's in the audience. He served on the commission for a really long time. He can tell you, you know, when bigger projects came up, I'd show up, the plans and the traffic engineer, and we
It's
brief.
helpful, thank you.
It makes it look like we're accomplishing something, by just having Jeff come and explain this tonight, because this was an excellent presentation.
Right, and I think, to be honest with you, I think at some point, either annually or biannually, I think that there should be a joint meeting of the police commission and the planning commission to have a general workshop, a general discussion on traffic
Yes.
concerns.
That'd be awesome.
And that way, every single person that's been elected in the town of Old Saybrook that has some sort of field touch, whatever to it, can sit down and just talk. And Chris Costa and I can be there as staff to give you our staff input. I see nothing wrong with that. It's just getting everyone to commit to the time. We spent our first 2 years on a different focus. I'm eager to move to a different focus, and I think this is all good for the community.
This is great.
Thank you very much.
And one other thing I just wanted to point out is, prior to the crosswalks, there would be these, diamond type of, you've probably seen in other locations, painted markings on either side. It's like a sawtooth type pattern. I don't know if you've seen it at any other mid-block crosswalks. That's a visual, and there'll also be, signs at each one of these that'll say yield here to pedestrians.
Okay.
So there's, you know, there will be a lot of visual, type of warnings. And hopefully people will obey.
Very appreciated.
Flashing lights tend to.
And someone will complain about the flashing lights and we're ruining
Yeah,
Colonial
no,
Main Street,
100%.
but I don't care because safety has to come first.
Yeah, yellow signs are ugly.
Correct.
You know, I have to say that you are one of the most patient individuals I think I have ever met. Like, you have just stood there and just let us talk, and that's great. And you stood there the whole time.
I think I exude the same amount of patience with this commission. No?
No.
I'll have to go to some of the
He's still
videos.
standing.
Jeff spent a long time in front of planning commissions and, yeah.
Thank you
I
so
have the
very
other two
much.
locations,
Oh, there's more pictures. Yes, show us.
Jeff, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Could you send me the PDF of these?
yes,
I know I have them, but if you could send them at the top of my email, and I will send them out to the commissioners.
Okay.
And you can zoom in and look at them to your heart's content. Is that good?
But did you want to show us in person?
I mean, it's,
If is that what
a
you
lot of it
want?
is just, duplication, it's,
Okay.
there's just little different scenarios at each crosswalk, but
Okay.
it's the same plans,
Mm-hmm.
the same concept. You know, with the beacons and sawtooth patterns here and the signage. All these beacons too will be solar powered.
Oh, cool.
Oh, good.
See, I didn't ever really realize the solar. That's the first time I heard that, so, yeah.
Lends itself well on Main Street. Of course, there'll be battery storage, so I mean, you know, the sun doesn't have to be out for them to work, so.
Right.
So thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you so
Jeff.
very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, let's move to discussion and possible action regarding the chief's proposal concerning a drug-free zone.
Thank you very much. So, I know when you say the word drone, there's like immediate emotion on one side of the issue to the other. So let me take you back from that for a second. So back in 2017, as I alluded to in my email, there was a public act 17-52 that talks about,
Thank you.
Are you sure?
Good evening,
We can
everyone.
take a break.
thank you, Jess, I appreciate it.
He's done this once.
He's done this a lot, right? That specifically says that no municipality can create an ordinance that would affect a commercial unmanned aircraft or a drone. Essentially, when they did that, they pretty much said to the municipalities, you can create an ordinance for anything that's not a commercial drone or unmanned aircraft. And so we have seen different towns around the state do that over the years. So drones were never really a thing for us. I think, what was it, like 4 or 5 years ago, I think right before COVID, Clinton was in the news a lot. They had that drone that had a gun on it and it would fly around and shoot. And then there was YouTube videos of it. And then there was a drone with like a flamethrower and everyone was very, very concerned about that. And that individual was arrested time and time and time again. And then that issue kind of went away. And from time to time, we do get calls, right? It's a drone hovering over my house, or there's a drone bothering me. And so after recent events where drones were used, maybe properly or improperly, I thought it might be time to take a look at this. Now, at the same time, our main drone pilot, Bobby Barrett, one of our dispatchers, our per diem dispatchers, brought to my attention a class that he wanted to take, a professional development experience, where he would go and learn about de-drone software with other police departments. And de-drone software is simply free software available to us that identifies where a drone is, and most importantly, where the operator of the drone is. So you can go and say to them, please take down your drone. And so he came back with lots of information at my request. I put it together and gave it to you. My thought is, I feel that I have a responsibility, not just as the police chief, but also as the emergency management director, to go to the Board of Selectmen and suggest that we create an ordinance that governs and gives some authority to public safety incident commanders on regulating drones within the boundaries of Old Saybrook. Things that came to my mind. So when we have a significant law enforcement scene going on, we certainly don't want the person that we're interested in or somebody else watching us from the air and giving real-time data that compromises officer safety. So whether it's us or I call in a SWAT team and we're doing something, their movements, television stations that are live cannot film them. There's an unwritten rule that it just doesn't happen because it compromises officer safety. That goes away with a camera on a drone. Okay, so I want to protect us from that. If we're at a fire scene and the fire chief has directed some sort of aerial attack on the fire and there's private drones trying to get footage hovering above, it hampers that. If we're dealing with a very sensitive issue, perhaps where there are deceased bodies involved, I don't believe a private drone should be able to videotape a deceased body, exclusively exclude it from FOI regulations, photographs of deceased body or live streaming video before family members are advised that their loved ones have perished. I also think that there are other times that we don't want drones flying. For example, I personally do not want a drone to be able to fly over any of our schools during the academic day. That can give unnecessary intelligence to someone who wishes the school campus or school community harm. I have an issue with drones at the beach. People go to the beach, they lie out in something that's less than full attire, and I don't want a voyeurism incident of drones hovering above innocent people trying to go to our beaches and relaxing. But currently, there is no law that allows us to limit that. The law would come in the form of a local ordinance. So as you're aware, a local ordinance stems from someone asking the Board of Selectmen to look into it. If they're interested in it, they would assign counsel. Council would draft language. It would go back to the Board of Selectmen. There would be a public hearing and a town meeting and eventual, hopefully, adoption of the town ordinance. And so I'm merely seeking support from this commission, and I'll be seeking it from other entities in town, the fire department, perhaps the ambulance association, perhaps others, just to go ahead and say to the Board of Selectmen, I would like you to look into this possibility.
I think you should start with the emergency management office.
Sure, he's a hell of a guy. I'll get in touch with him tomorrow. And I just simply want to be able to say, hey, listen, not only am I here, but the police commission also thinks we should look into it. Not the specific language, that's not our job to debate. That's the public process of creating an ordinance to debate.
But that ordinance that you added into the email.
That was from the other town, Burlington, I think.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it was fantastic.
It's clear and crisp.
And there's no holes in it. I mean, I looked to see if there was anything that we could add. I mean, there's a couple of things you could add if you wanted to get a little, like a fine added in or something like that. But other than that, I thought that was an excellent.
Yeah, my additions to that would be giving authority to the public safety incident commander to make this type of decision. So fire chief or myself or whoever has an issue with a drone, boom. I will tell you that at our last significant critical incident where I requested helicopter resources, the helicopter specifically said they would not come if there are any drones in the air. And so if I need a search of a helicopter for nighttime operations or using a flare system, I need to be able to look to somebody and say, turn on that D-drone software thing and make sure that there's nothing in the area so I can confirm to that air asset that's coming, we've done everything we can to assure you that there's no drones in the area.
Now, where do we get our air assets from? Where do they come from?
So Lifestar is obviously an air asset for medical transport. They don't do searching as much anymore, but definitely air transport. Usually we have a helo come out of Cape Cod if we're looking for a Coast Guard resource. The Connecticut State Police have Trooper 1 that comes out of Hartford. And there's Eagle 1 in Fairfield County that also comes out for water-based searches. Life Flight from New York is also available. They are a backup to Lifestar, and Yale New Haven Hospital has just, they don't do emergency scene transport, they just do inter-hospital, but you know, if it was a mass casualty incident, we could also summon that craft. So I just want to make sure that the town of Old Saybrook is up to the times, that we're not reacting to a problem, right? I don't want to come to you and go, oh my God, we had such a problem. I want to be proactive. And I think the way to be proactive is to go to the Board of Selectmen and say, hey, other towns have done it. Here's the statute, here's the public act. I think this is a good idea. I'd like to work with council on it. And I'd like to be able to say, oh, and by the way, the police commission thinks it's a good idea, you look into it. The fire department thinks it's a good idea. That's all I was looking for in this agenda item.
So would you need two motions, one for the D-drone and then one for the selectmen?
No, thank you for asking. The D-drone is just a computer program asset that I have available to me as the police chief. I think what I would be looking tonight is just a motion of support to continue the
For
mission.
the concept.
For the concept, yeah, not for the language, for the concept.
Can I ask just two questions?
Of course.
One, I totally get the school thing. I'm actually surprised that that's not a thing now. I didn't even think, as a mom, like drones could like fly over our kids' schools in the middle of the day. I didn't even
Recess.
consider that, right? The beach thing, I mean, we're out there for a reason. Photos will be taken, but I guess my question is, what exactly? We have no real say, right? It's gonna be a
Well, it's not,
support or?
the police commission wouldn't vote on it. You would vote on it as individual citizens, right, at town meeting to adopt the ordinance or not. But I think as the sausage gets made, I'm not really sure the role of the commission, other than attending as a member of the public, a public hearing or a board of selectmen.
Okay, so what if, total makeup scenario, okay? My son was lost in one night, and I wanted the additional help. What does this act do for that? Like, what if the Lifestar wasn't enough? What if the helicopters, could we then say any drones could go out and help, like?
Well, I think that would be up to the public safety incident commander, right? So when you're in charge of a significant emergency scene, one of your responsibilities is determining what assets are proper for the response. And so if I'm in charge of an emergency scene and I believe an air asset is more valuable to the operation than a private person in their drone, I'll make that call and that'll be my decision.
Okay, I mean, I get that, but. Okay.
This would be just specifically private drones.
Correct.
So where does something like the press fall into this?
So it's private. The press is a unique animal. Generally, they work with us because they need us the next day, right? So something might be great on a Monday, but they know they're gonna need us on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So we try to maintain as good a working relationship with the television press, I should say, as best as possible.
Okay. I think, I mean, I could certainly endorse the concept of it. You know, the language, of course, have to be legal counsel.
Yeah, not me.
That actually makes me feel a whole lot better about
Like the specifics, right? When you say the language, that
the
means the
language
individual,
in the ordinance.
right?
That,
I would imagine the first thing we do is take Burlington's and all the other towns and give them to whoever council is and say, what do you think?
well, I'm sure the council, they've dealt with this kind of stuff already. So.
I personally don't want to support something that's like exactly like, Burlington's or whoever, but like, I don't agree with the beach thing. I mean, you go to the beach, you go to the beach, like you're there at the beach for a certain reason. We had
And to
TikTok,
your
we had
mom-
so much.
To your mom that says, why was this drone hovering over my 15-year-old daughter?
But that would come at the
Tell your
public
15-year-old
hearing.
daughter this.
Right, yeah.
This
Yeah.
part of it would come at the public hearing.
Correct.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not
no,
gonna
I get
be
that.
here.
Yeah. So I'm just more, if we're sending an endorsement, it's not for everything that was written. Does that make sense? Like,
No, we just
okay.
frame it almost as written in the agenda.
Yeah.
It's that broad. And
And then legal counsel takes it to the next step.
That's all.
Well, the Board of Selectmen has to decide if
Right.
they even want to
If they
entertain it.
want
it.
They can be like,
Yeah.
we're not interested, and it
Right.
dies there.
okay,
Yeah.
To kind of piggyback on what Jessica said, first of all, the beach thing, I think is ridiculous. If you're gonna go out there and you're gonna dress a 40-year-old mom like your 12-year-old daughter, that's wrong. And same with your kids, put clothes on them. You're out in public, you've waived your right to privacy at that point. But my concern is kind of with what Jessica said. When we were looking to get boats in this town, the argument was, if your loved one was out on the water, you'd want as many boats out there as you could. If I was somebody and my kid was lost somewhere, I think I'd want as many people looking for my kid.
Yeah. that's what
Whether
I'm
it be
struggling with.
water, land, whatever it was. So like, where would that fall into this? I mean, I know this is not what we're deciding tonight, but those are just my concerns.
Mhm.
So I think there's different phases of an incident. And I think in the immediate emergency phase, private drones are probably not included. But I think that as an incident evolves and those other assets that are temporary in nature, a helicopter disappears, we might ask people to get involved and coordinate efforts with public safety, just like we've done for missing people in the woods.
Mhm.
So when we've exhausted canine teams, right? We don't want 1 million people walking in the woods because then the canine teams are inefficient because there's body scent everywhere.
Mm.
So sometimes there's a lot of people who want to help, but they're not trained to understand that there's certain things that might seem good that aren't good to the overall operation. And so that's where the public safety incident commander comes in to make those decisions.
So maybe after like 8 days, if you can't.
No, it could be 4 hours. It really depends.
I mean,
It's
On the
being
incident.
identified.
Yeah, depends on the incident.
We have a drone in the police department.
We have remember I sent that email, we have an emergency management
Yeah,
drone
that's right.
that is available to emergency management, to the police department, to the fire department.
Thanks for refreshing the memory.
No problem.
I invite a motion that we authorize the chief to work with the Board of Selectmen and encourage the Board of Selectmen to work with the chief to create a new municipal ordinance concerning a drug-free zone during emergency operations.
So moved.
Second,
Other discussion?
No, I'm fine with it. Thank
All
you.
those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous? Okay. Comments from the public? We've had some very patient members of the public in attendance tonight. Any comments? How about online, Larry? Do we have any raised hands?
Not currently.
All right. Item 9, discussion and possible action to enter into executive session to discuss a pending legal matter. And item 10, together I would treat them, discussion and possible action to enter into executive session to discuss matters pertaining to collective bargaining. The chief, I would invite you to join us in that discussion. Can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Jessica?
Oh, yes, oh, sorry.
We are out of executive session. Next item on the agenda is comments from the chief.
Great, I'll just be very brief. I just want to thank my personnel. They've handled a couple of very critical, serious incidents since the last time we were together, and every single member of our agency, no matter their title, position, schedule, whatever, has performed admirably. And I really, really appreciate the professionalism that they exhibited and the work that they've done. So thank you to them.
Comments from the commissioners. Jessica?
I won't comment too much because I don't know what we can say, but thank you for all your work that you did with the incident that did happen recently.
Tremendous team effort. Lots of people.
My mind was blown and I didn't up until 4:30 in the morning listening to the scanner and I can't, like, thank you. All right, that's it.
Mark? Joe?
Thank you for bringing in the traffic engineer tonight. That was a good idea.
Good night.
Nope.
Jackie?
And the police.
Yeah, I'm real happy about
Oh, they were so cool, right? That was nice.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Yes. Second? I'll second.
Thank you.
Sorry. I really want to stay here.
Yeah, like, come on, folks.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.